Welcome everyone to the podcast. It's me, Zero, here with...
Hi, I'm Shinta.
I'm Josh Knight the First.
Mxyl.
Rye.
And I am Cannibal Sarracenian, here as a special guest from the Uncommon Cast RX, the sole representative this time around. So, hello.
And I'm VashieV.
Today's podcast is on Kamen Rider Brave, Survive the Revived Beast Squad special. I'm just going to start off going scene by scene, sort of. It opens with Hiro getting ready to start his shift, and we learn that he's going to New York tomorrow because he's won the Influential Doctor of the Year award. And then he asks the nurses about the PET scan, and they say that it's almost taken care of except the image is blurry, and then Hiro tells them to redo the test because even a small chance of risk can cost the patient their life. After that, he just says Hiro's way too strict, and Emily asks why do they follow him around without complaining. So, any thoughts about this scene, Shinta?
I admit I've had some issues getting connected with Kagami as a character due to his general aloofness. And coming into this, I initially thought this was going to be more of the same. From what comes, this actually ends up being an interesting, contrast from what we get at the end, as then we know why these two put up with Kagami's bullshit.
Fair enough. Josh, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's the beginning of the movie. Anybody watching who's already been keeping up with Exate up till this point will recognize the characterization up until that part as far as the show goes, as far as Hiro not being able to open up, not wanting to get involved with his patients, and this is just more of the same. That, of course, just like Shinta just said, will help once you get to the end of this particular episode, but you're still not going to see an incredible amount of growth here than you would in the series proper, as we've seen in just the recent episodes, 24 and 25.
Fair enough. Yeah, it did seem almost a step backwards, but this special might have been done a little before those episodes. Your thoughts, Mxyl?
Well, I certainly liked a lot of the opening. It does give a little question where it seems, I'm not gonna say referring to the episode because there's some I haven't seen it, but yeah, I don't know. He just really doesn't seem like how he was in episode 17 or wherever, the one where he got Tell Fantasy, for instance. He really just seems really egotistical, and not even in the way where he was in the earlier ones where he was just he just wanted to do his job, and that was kind of that. Here he seems more completely perfectionist.
Thoughts on this, Rye?
Okay, so everyone so far has pretty much said what I would think, so what I'm gonna add is I did not expect to see these two girls again. We saw them once episode 2, and they were gone after that. I was actually shocked to see them back.
Well, they showed up once afterwards. It's when he's injured. They're taking care of him.
Wait, so how this is me not being a initiate in the X8 show. How often have they shown up in the show, in total then?
Twice.
Any more thoughts on this, Sarracenian?
Well, I have some heavy doubts that people making X8 don't really know how nurses or medical profession really works, because I'm pretty sure that I'm sure this is kind of something some kind of quirky thing in the show, but I'm pretty sure nurses even in Japan, even in different countries, aren't actually the doctor's sort of personal maids who, dress him up and serve as his secretaries and shit, because it's that doesn't really, that's not something that happens in real life, I don't think. And I think people can agree with me on that.
Well, yeah, that makes sense because one, we're all here talking about the show knowing full well that the audience is aimed at 5-year-olds and lower. And two, yeah, they're stylizing a lot of things, so it's not going to exactly reflect reality. But when the show cares to, it can. Like in the episode where Hiro had to do the Whipple procedure, they actually did that fairly accurately. So they pick and choose where they're going to be accurate as far as the medical profession is concerned. As far as a nurse goes, yeah, absolutely. They're not going to wear anything like that, which is so for the most part, leggy and revealing, just the same thing as they have Asuna wearing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt, knowing what you're
But
watching.
I don't. But I have a lot of. But that's something I have a lot of questions on because, I don't see. I don't really appreciate. I don't really appreciate that we're choosing to kind of stylize nurses in these like the most like layman's stereotypical nurse role. I mean, like, okay, they don't. I mean, okay, I don't know what the Japanese nurse uniforms look like, but just a quick Google search shows me that they don't really dress like that either. I'm pretty
I
sure.
was gonna say if it's similar to Kuga,
Yeah, well,
pretty much the same.
I mean, also. Did anyone in Kuga wear like high
Yeah,
heels? Like any nurses wear high heels? Did they?
those aren't high heels, but
Did the nurses wear high heels? Because I'm pretty sure nurses in anywhere in the hospital shouldn't be wearing high heels because that's kind of, there's a lot of practical reasons to do that. And that's just something that this really bothers me. And this is going to actually bother me throughout the special, really. I'm not going to get too ahead of myself, but there's a lot of nasty things going on in this special that I just see it, just see this, and I cannot help but to think that someone doing this show is either has no idea how these things work or is intentionally being pretty, let's just say, inappropriate with the subject matter, because nurses are a pretty like important role in hospitals too, and they should I don't think they should really be I don't think this is really I don't really like this depiction what they're going
Toei.
with in this show. Yeah, it's Toei, but that doesn't give them exactly a sort of jail-free card, does it? It's Toei, and everyone has kind of complained about that shit, and it seems that they just don't want to listen to that.
I think it's less that and more that they're back here. You're right. As you were saying earlier, I was surprised too to see him back because they just seemed like set dressing to push Hero's ego. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. So bringing them back here isn't so much that they were necessary so much as they're needed to show off how psychotic Asakura still is, since he's the one that's being brought back. He's more the selling point than Hero is because he's a returning writer.
But then that becomes that brings up a whole other problem in this special. But I think we'll get to that quite a bit soon. So, but yeah, my piece on my piece at least on this scene in particular, not giving me a good impression on this special, and honestly not even that much on X8 in general, if this is how they think hospitals work, because they must have got the writers, the creators of
This is
X8
the
must
lowest
be
of the
living
low in the grand scheme of that.
Yeah, I hope so, that this isn't like a norm of it.
no, this is
It was
probably
not written by a normal staff writer. It was written by Minato Takano, who I can find nothing on.
for the uniforms. It seems that they sort of do have that type of uniform, or at least they did until they got revived. So I guess they're sort of realistic, but not really.
Not really. No. Whoever is writing this must be living some healthy ass life, because I don't believe he and shit has ever seen a hospital before. I don't believe that.
The thing with X8 is it turns to like minimize the medical stuff as much as possible. As for like Hero having like 2 nurses, yeah, that's a little bullshit, but he's also the director's son, so...
Which then kind of brings the question, which then I have to question. Again, this is me being like not in the know of how X8 works, but just like from how you're describing it, then why did they even choose a hospital setting to begin with? Because I feel like just doing Kamen Rider medical drama in of itself, that's quite a lot to juggle with, you would think, right? But like that and video games, isn't that a little too much?
Well, this goes back to something that we were kind of talking about before we started recording, where there's really 2 companies that we're paying attention to here. We're taking part of Toei, who makes the show, tells the story, hires the writers, and then there's Bandai, who makes the toys and really pushes a lot of where things will go. Case in point, Kamen Rider Gaim. We had the standpoint where one side wants to tell a story about samurai, but the Bandai portion of things want to sell these lockseed orange fruit thingies, and somehow the writer has to meet in the middle because they don't have a choice. They've been given these two things, and now you have to bring them together. It's been happening like that for several years now. They're with Gaim, Drive, and now Exade, not as well in Ghost, obviously. But when they're having to marry the two, they have to figure out a way to make the two work out. And yes, one part's got to suffer more than the other because, yeah, they're not selling any doctor devices other than the stethoscope, which they barely started selling a few months ago, or at least taking the pre-orders for. But yeah, absolutely, the focus is on the gaming aspect.
And that's kind of a. I don't think that's that seems like a very disastrous thing to be doing especially in considering the long run, because it's like. Because that only means that the show's quality is going to suffer if there's no one meeting at the middle. If at least we don't, if it's one thing, if it's like, oh, Bandai comes up with this idea and Toei's like, well, we'll work with this. Okay, we're going to do a video game thing. But if Toei then has completely different ideas of how the show's story should be working, well, you can't have both. You have to do one or the other. Like Gaim only barely managed to do their whole fruit thing, and that was with like some of the really on the nose, like forbidden fruit Christian mythology shit, and then the Sengoku
Greek.
Thing pretty much
Greek, not Christian. Greek.
Yeah, well, there's just a lot of like
okay, yeah, there's a lot of mythology that calls them whole golden fruit.
Right. But basically they dealt with that, and then the whole warring states thing was basically just completely like it's gone, but completely since I think almost day one, really.
Well,
and
they got the medical drama and the gaming thing to merge through the whole gaming disease thing, and several Japanese series have all looked at that in successful ways. Dot Hack, the Mega Man Battle Network anime. Third one I'm forgetting the name of off the top of my head, as I haven't really watched it, but Japan's done this before and made it successful, so it's not completely out there, but the setting for once is in the real world, and that's more of the difference.
And the series, for my money, has managed to surprisingly well marry those two things together over the course of the last 25 episodes. It's just this on its own as a clear-cut spin-off, I don't think is the best way of looking at that to judge the whole series.
Well, that's at least reassuring. That's at least somewhat reassuring, but I'm still, once again, I still have a lot of skepticism, especially if, this is apparently like just a thing also from the show within itself. I don't know.
Vashi, any thoughts on this?
Honestly, for me, it was just nice to see asshole hero again. Because there's been so much character shift with him, it was nice to go back and go, oh yeah, he was kind of like this, wasn't he?
Okay, Mxyl, any final thoughts before we move on?
Not really. I am going to mention that it feels to me like combining two different things, and part of this may be Bandai, but I do think that that's been a thing for quite a while in Kamen Rider. Ghost had it with Ghosts plus Eyes, and what I've seen in Gaim has the fruit plus samurai with a little dance thrown in. Though a lot of it in general seems to be just taking two different, completely separate theme stands, turning them into one. And I think you're probably right that is just the writers versus the marketing.
I don't know. I feel like at least Ghost actually managed pretty successfully only focus on the one thing, which was ghosts. And, people from history with dead people. So that's Ghost again. But
yeah, the eye theme,
but that's only that's kind of more the visual motif of the story, the whole. So I don't know. It just feels like this kind of feels like a mess, doing these sort of two radically different things. To me, at least.
The show handles it much better, but most of the time it's like standard Kamen Rider stuff, and then they have like the aesthetics of doctors or gaming. So, yeah, it's weird. Anyway, next thing. We then cut to Beast, Tiger, Dark Kiva, and Sword meeting King Dark, the final villain from X. When Asakura Takashi shows up and starts attacking the other riders, King Dark tells him to stop attacking other riders and that he'll make Asakura's dream of fighting come true. Any thoughts on this? Shinta?
King Dark, I think, was a good choice for the quote-unquote representative main antagonist, even though Asakura is really the host of this, just getting them together, since his monster faction he was in charge of was a mix of historical and mythological individuals fused with animals. So then for this group, he calls in his... with the respect to the history of the franchise, historical/mythological beast riders. So that generally fits his motive. My question is more on how they got Asakura back for this. Not as actor, but they say he's revived, and from what the special later reveals, I'm curious how they brought him back, since they said he was dead. Ending of Ryuki, he was never dead to begin with because of the reset button. It infers they follow episode final's ending, but episode final wasn't exactly canon to the rest of the series, or the post-decade timelines all mixed up. It's really not a big thing. It just they don't really touch on how they got him back for this.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, most of it's kind of a mess, especially because Beast is there. Okay, you can argue Dark Kiva is 1986. Sword, he's fucking dead, right? But Beast has 3 different explanations of how he could keep living after Wizard, and he's the one who died. This is the opposite of Laser, where we get 3 different reasons why he's dead, and he keeps showing up in specials and movies. Any thoughts on this, Josh?
Well, yeah, the big sticking point on that would definitely be out of the writers that they chose to have there. I get that they're trying to go with a quote-unquote Beast theme, so they feel Beast, that's his name, let's keep him in there. But compared to the other writers that they have there, he's definitively a good guy, where it's even arguable for Sword, but for the most part, the rest of them are depicted as antagonists and bad guys. And yeah, on top of that, he's not dead. Sword, yeah, you can take it with his last arc, but even then he went out as kind of a sympathetic character. Dark Kiva, no matter how you look at it, whether it was King or Otuya, he's dead. And then Tiger, he's dead, but then yeah, like you said, the whole
Ryuki continuity snarl.
Right, exactly. So he's the one that doesn't fit in at all with me. If I was going to switch him out for somebody else, I would have much rather seen a different character from Kiva come back. We could have done Poseidon. We didn't get Poseidon much. That's 3 animals there if you wanted to do it that way from O's. So no, I don't think it's always a nitpick that, I'm fine with Dark Kiva. I love the suit of Dark Kiva. But what I hate is when they bring back a writer and they don't remember what equipment they're supposed to have. So him having the Zanvat sword, that's fine, but the bat itself shouldn't be there on the sword, because that's not on the sword until Wataru gets it later on in the future. If it's just Dark Kiva, he shouldn't have it on there.
Yeah, I agree. It was a little weird. I mean, they're all a little off. Any thoughts on this, Mxyl?
I hadn't seen any of the previous writers from their own respective series, so I was pretty fine with it from the get-go.
Although I hadn't seen Ryuki, then I'd gotten the general impression that Asakura was the evil rider villain. So
One of the.
yeah, he
Arguably most.
Yeah, he definitely delivered on being really evil, and so I ended up kind of liking that as a depiction. Though I went back on the forums, and it turns out that's nothing like how he was in Ryuki.
He was very inconsistently written in Ryuki. He was either anarchist or full-on sociopath/psychopath, depending on whether Kobayashi or Inoue was feeling at the time.
I mean, they kind of both overlap anyway, so.
They sort of do, but I'll get to a thing later. He feels mostly like his Ryuki counterpart, except his reasoning's a little different. Because in Ryuki, fighting is the best thing in the world for him. He's like a hedonist. All he cares about is fighting, because that's fun as all hell. But in this, it's more like the fighting is just a means to an end to see people suffering. So he's more of a sadist here. So it's like the actions are basically the same. Like he acts pretty much the same throughout this thing. It's just the backstory and the motivation's slightly different.
I don't think I don't think that's really contradictory, given how in
Yeah,
practice
it's
that still
not.
means that I like causing people harm.
I know. It's just, slight writing differences. Any
Mhm.
thoughts on this, Rye?
The thing about Tiger being here is that while he was antagonistic in Ryuki, he wasn't actually a villain. He was fighting the other riders for his own goal.
Dude, he killed like 3 people.
He was fighting the other riders for his own goal, but remember that he died saving a little girl from getting hit by a truck. He was antagonistic, but he wasn't a villain. He would actually have no reason to be fighting Brave here.
That's where you're thinking wrong. See, the thing is, Taiga always says shit like that. It's like, I'm trying to be a hero. But the thing is, like, underneath it all,
He doesn't understand what heroism is, as everything he was told about what heroism is tends to be the opposite of what actual heroism was. That was kind of the irony of his death in Ryuki, since all of the deaths in Ryuki of the riders were intended to be ironic. He dies actually being a hero after committing several acts, not knowing what the heroic action to take was, so he did the exact opposite of what was heroic.
And then he ends up getting labeled as a hero the day after his death.
Yeah, that's just irony. Well, I mean, I just saw this episode like Friday, so I can't remember.
But that's why his appearance here doesn't make much sense, because there's no reason for him to think that this would make him a hero, that being here fighting would do that.
Yeah, except if they said, oh, these Gashats are evil or something, and stopping them would save the world. Because his heroics is all just about the greater good. And you could buy that he's stupid enough to fall for that crap, or that it's just his power creep coming in. Because, like, later on when he starts using his, like, fighting ability, he just throws away the I'm trying to be a hero thing. It's because, like, I'm enjoying this too much and now I have to think of a reason to keep doing it. So, like, he's more of a selfish character in Ryuki, except he always just talks about being a hero. And for his, like, the person he saved, what happens is he's walking down the street, he sees a father and child, like, cross the crosswalk. This truck doesn't stop. It's about to hit them. Right. At first, when he sees the father and child, he thinks it's his professor. And then he just, like, says, oh shit, my professor is gonna die again. So he just runs up and saves him and gets hit by the truck. So the thing is, like, yeah, I mean, the irony is he's a hero when he dies, when he's not trying, because that's the whole thing. That episode with Kitao was him saying, like, if you try to be a hero, you're gonna fail because there's no secret to it, just be a good person, basically. And then, like, Tiger trying to figure all that out. Yeah, so I could see him being here because, like, there's different angles you can attack Tiger from to make him join your side.
Or, to spoil something later, this is all a secret plan by Foundation X. These could all just be clones of the Rider Gears, with the exception to Asakura. So characterization and motivation for Sasor, Dark Kiva, Beast, and Tiger don't actually matter.
I would agree to that.
That's the only way I can justify it.
I was gonna say it's like they're just holograms. Some kind of, because they only take a couple hits and then they disappear or something like that. So yeah, who knows? Mxyl, you got anything?
I hadn't even realized I hadn't seen any of the series that the writers were in, so it was pretty fine for me from the get-go.
Okay, spoilers, I guess.
Yeah.
Thoughts on this, Sarracenian?
Why is King Dark there? Why did they choose, out of all the villains, why did they choose King Dark? That's something
Because Shadow Moon was busy that day.
No, but
because they overused Shadow Moon disrespectfully.
Exactly. That's my point.
No, but
that's my point. Exactly.
Okay, I'm not okay. So my thing. Okay, I'm just gonna generally like I'm even gonna kind of not forgive, but kind of overlook the fact that they don't you got King Dark back, but apparently Kamen Rider X, Jin Keisuke was apparently not good enough to be brought back. His actual main nemesis, his enemy that he's the show he's from, but I'm just thinking, I'm looking at it, what out of all the Rider villains
Yeah.
to kind of be like the setup for like, ooh, evil Beast Riders and then Kamen Rider Beast, then why did we bring King Dark? Like, Shinta, you
Because he's
mentioned
got a
that,
good aesthetic.
like, then Shinta mentions about, like, okay, King Dark's whole thing was like mythology and historical villains that's like animals, but that was only by the end, really, isn't it? And even then, it's like the most focus was still pretty much on like the fact that he's the villain with the whole mythology and history basis. He's not really like an animal guy. He doesn't look like an animal guy, and I just don't really understand if they're gonna do this whole thing. Like, okay, I'm gonna, of course, now I'm presuming that I'm gonna presume that they weren't just being lazy, which they most likely are, but I'm still gonna just think about like why they couldn't choose, anyone else, where this sort of selection of like, ooh, Beast Riders might make sense. You could choose any number of any rider villains who have an animal theme, which there are a good dozen, and then the choice for King Dark just seems completely random to me, as is the kind of choice to suddenly have Kamen Rider Beast as one of the villains, which is kind of like I'm like, okay, yeah, like you guys already went over, like some of these aren't like necessarily villains, more like anti-heroes or something, or anti-villains. But like, what did Beast ever do? Like, why is he the fucking villain now here? Like, was putting mayonnaise on donuts that much of a crime?
It was.
Yeah, that was a crime.
I haven't seen Wizard, but putting mayonnaise on donuts does sound like a crime to me.
It is a crime, given that I have actually done that to prove a point that there's no way any real human would actually enjoy that. I have actually tried a plain sugar donut with Japanese mayo on it. It is the most disgusting, gut-wrenching thing you will ever try in your life.
And that video was hilarious.
Well, I
I've
guess
tried cereal.
Well, then
and
I guess.
juice, but
Well, I get why isn't he the villain then? Fucking goddamn, he's the most evil motherfucker of them all. Then by that case.
Well, it's not like it's really King Dark though.
Yeah, exactly. It's not King Dark,
Well,
so
then-
it really doesn't matter what the choice was.
But why even pretend that it was
No,
King
no.
Dark? And
I have a theory of why you could pretend it. It's because if all the other ones are holograms and Asakura is the only real one, you show up with this guy who's like, 30 foot tall or something, and just lying there, and it's like, all right, do what I say, and I'm gonna make your wish come true. It's just the awe factor, I think, is.
I'm just thinking, why even bother this whole setup if the whole focus, which this whole special kind of is about that, we are just gonna bring Asakura back. Well, then just bring Asakura back. Don't even bother with the whole thing with the beasts. I know there's the whole Beast of Safari thing, but you can kind of do
that's
that.
the reason.
You don't really need to kind of make this whole weird ass setup where it's like, King Dark and his minions of mayonnaise donut eaters, I guess.
Well, the reason is because this special was for the app, Toei's app, which basically streams stuff. So it's basically more of like a
Tokusatsu fan club funded special.
Yeah, so it's basically, it's fan service. That's why King Dark.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's
Right.
not good fan service. I don't think
Look,
it's a
man,
very
Toei
good
never
one.
cared about good fan service.
Yeah, well then, but they shouldn't bother, should they?
No, they have to make money.
I would argue that for the sheer fact, and again, it's getting ahead, but I think it's worth noting, for the sheer fact that it brought back Foundation X after 5 years, it was worth it for me.
Agreed.
I'll get into fucking Foundation X later, but I think that'll get my. I'm trying to get too ahead of myself.
I'll say this much for that. The reason I'm happy they're back is that even as much as I love this series, I love this franchise, I get sick of getting Shocker getting their ass handed to them every other month in a team-up special. So it'd be nice to see a new organization be seen as more of a threat. And
let's see Foundation X having its ass handed.
Yeah, exactly. So, but like the way they've been doing it, they're just in little spots here and there in movies and in the TV series, just for an episode or two, just for a second, like, we're collecting data, we're amassing power. That makes them seem like more of a behind the scenes threat, like Shocker used to be, instead of the straight up stuff they were doing in the Kamen Rider Ichigo movie from a year
Especially
ago.
since that's what Foundation X was meant to be when Riku Sanjo introduced them in Double, a modern equivalent to Shocker, doing the thing in the background, financing all these other threats and special events which would facilitate rider crossovers, and yet no one else took the bait.
Yeah, because they sucked at the end of Kamen Rider Double.
Junkazu sucked.
I thought that the whole point was that they sucked.
No, but like their use as a plot point to set up all the Double movies, that was well handled. Like they're gonna get their ass handed to them regardless. So as long as they're plausible enough reason to set things up, that's all that matters. Anyway, Vashie, your thoughts?
Through all this, I'm just glad it wasn't Shadow Moon or Ika Devil.
Why not Ika Devil? Ika Devil's at least an actual animal.
I'm sick of Shocker.
Everybody's sick of Shocker.
No, well, Shocker is, too bad, because Shocker is the go-to Kamen Rider villain. At least with Shocker, it makes sense. At least Shocker is actually animal-themed. King Dark doesn't make any fucking sense. King Dark is not animal-themed at all.
King Dark is also an incarnation of Great Leader Shocker when you think about it.
I mean...
Does Guva have made any sense?
Well,
Yeah.
Daguva would at least make a little bit of sense, although at least Daguva teaming up with Asakura would make sense. They're both fucking psychopaths, fucking murderers, but of course, if we bring Daguva back, that would completely just change how this story would work. But either way, I'm just saying, there are better choices.
I'll say this
random choices.
As far as a better choice, it would have been nice to see Gao come back from Den-O. He was a crocodile.
Oh, that suit's destroyed.
Or better yet, bring back the 10-phase Gorgas, from Amazon. Because Amazons is still because Amazons, that guy is actually animal themed, and Amazons, Kamen Rider Amazons is getting its second season. The first episode just aired, so it's like at least you could do cross promotions with that. You don't need to have. You don't really need to bring back. You don't really need to bring back fucking King Dark, and then it's like. Oh, but then it's not actually King Dark anyway, so what's the point in even? You could just have like some weird-ass maxed figure, might as well, because that's about as much of an effect it has, really. I'm just saying, like, if this is trying to do fan service, like, of course, in practice, this doesn't actually all matter at all anyway. It's just like in practice, it's just a way to get this fight going. But I'm just saying, if this also meant to be fan service, they're doing a shit job at it because it's not really good fan service, is it?
Well, admittedly, I have to agree with you. There are many different ways they could have done that to be much more satisfying in the long run. Because, yeah, they're going about this in the manner of, I don't want to point fingers Saban, but the way they do it is try to get the most return for the least amount of money. So they're reusing suits that they already had built. That's probably why they went with King Dark, because they've got a brand new one that's still in good condition from back in Decade.
Because they're
doing. Gorgas has a new suit too. It's in good condition. Why not bring that one? Again, just saying.
Recognition, I guess.
But
and
pretty well
the whole Night of Safari thing, that's just a repaint of Dragonite Hunter Z, clearly. And there's primarily only two sets. It's the hospital and the warehouse, and then you don't need anything else. Like, they probably filmed this very quickly in about maybe 3 days.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's super low budget.
And the shaky cams implies that they didn't exactly, they might have not even gotten licensing for shooting.
Yeah, they had licensing. Like they're Toei. They don't have to worry about guerrilla shooting anything. Like they must rent out specific warehouses just in case. Like, okay, we got to film something this weekend. Which warehouse do we have open? Warehouse number 3. All right, we'll film it there. And then they're already using the hospitals. So yeah, they made this on the cheap and then turned it over very easily. Not even as a full DVD release. They just put it out through the app, which admittedly I wish they would allow us to have over here because I would absolutely support them through it.
I wouldn't, because I would be paying for a shitty product by then.
Well, it's more than just X8 though. It's a lot of older shows are on there too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that money still gets funneled into making things like that rather than somehow like fixing up the old shows.
At the end of the day, it's freaking, like, would you give Toei money so they put some stuff out in North America or the Western world, or, have them pretend that we don't exist? It's like, It's not a great solution, but I'd take it.
I'm at this point. I don't even know if that's really worth it. But hey, that's a whole other topic, and I think we should
Okay.
probably kind of move on to our next scene. I presume.
It cuts to I'm gonna say Satsuki, but that's not right. Sasuke being stalked by Dark Kiva. She tries to run away, but runs into Asakura, who's looking for a Gashat. He slaps him, but after that, he beats her up with a pipe. Anything on this scene, or should I keep going? Mxyl?
Well, either the highlight or the second to worst part was him eating a raw fish. Let me see.
You mean both?
I say it's a highlight.
Yeah, I mean it definitely borrows from some horror movie elements. And to a degree, that's quite unexpected for a Kamen Rider episode.
Well, sort of. Kiva's just doing the standard, like, I'm gonna stalk you like a vampire thing, and every once in a while, when they decide to remember, oh right, the back monsters can do, like, the vampire gimmicks, they use this type of filming. So yeah, I've seen a couple of times, but, it's nice that it's back. Any thoughts on this, Rai?
I feel like Dark Kiva was poorly utilized here. It was kind of neat to see him act all vampire-y, which was the whole theme, but then he just ups and vanishes to give Asakura screen time, which I'm not complaining too much about that because Asakura being himself is always fun to see, where he just takes a bite out of the raw fish and then starts going to town with the pipe. That is the psychotic rider that I miss.
Okay. Any thoughts, Vashi?
I feel that everybody aside from Asakura with this entire episode or special were underutilized, but God, it was nice to see that pipe get used again, because I'm just gonna assume it's the same pipe from Ryuki that got used a lot, but it was nice to see Asakura.
Well, there were different pipes in Ryuki.
Well, I know that was my joke.
I know. It's special item. They're holding it up in like a display.
Like every GIF I see for Ryuki is the main character getting tagged with a pipe. So yeah, it's the same to me. It's the same pipe, but I liked the way this was shot and filmed with the scene, especially with the grimness of it, with all the blood and all that. It's something we don't normally see in Kamen Rider, especially with X8, especially outside of just a slight ass kicking, damage and whatnot. So, but you don't really see oh my god, that person's dead blood.
Oh, you don't see that kind of crap in Amazons, usually even. Also, the pipe in the show is like frosted colored and not chrome like this one, so it's a different pipe. Anyway, thoughts, Shinta?
The whole him eating the fish thing is actually a reference to Tagashi Hagino, Asakura's actor, role as the main character of Choko Senshi Changerion from 1995. Overall, the general tone and feel of the series felt very early Showa era, with their usual stalking of monsters for their prey early on. Admittedly, that tone was abandoned, I don't want to say immediately, but like early on in the franchise for more general heroics. So it's not exactly that's not never seen in the franchise, it's just that they don't use it much anymore.
Fair enough. Your thoughts, Josh?
Well, yeah, I'm pretty much going to echo a lot of what you guys are saying already. Yeah, having Dark Kiva relegated to just a mindless stalking monster. Yeah, I like I said, I really like that suit. I really liked the character of both Otoya or King, whichever you're deciding to go with. But yeah, like we're all seeing here, Asakura is absolutely the focus here. And yes, I too missed the pipe there, seeing him go to town on that. I know going into it that there's a fairly good chance nobody's actually going to die, so he couldn't kill her. He just had to really do some damage on it. But it was nice to see, making the comparison to Amazons recently, some regular blood flying that I could more easily believe than that fake CG black blood that you see over there. And as far as a return to form for the more horror-y aspects of filming, I miss that, because then it adds more atmosphere to it instead of the straight up, here's the monster. They did something bad. We need to go fight it. No, like it adding the atmosphere. If they took a little bit more time like that with other spin-offs and episodes, it would add so much more depth to the overall franchise, and I wish they do it more often.
Yeah, I agree. As for Dark Hero, I mean, like, he might have just been a hologram. But that cop is probably dead, though.
No, like, that cop's dead.
Totally dead.
The cop is dead.
Yeah, there's no question on that.
Cop got his
I wonder,
flowers.
like, how the heck did the cop even die? I mean, if he was hit with the pipe, then I mean he'd have fallen down as opposed to just standing there for a few seconds and then falling down.
Common comedic trope, I'd say.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Kiva went and did. Dark Kiva went and did while he was trying to be spooky man.
Okay, that could make sense.
Maybe his muscles locked after his brain got bashed in or blood drained or something.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, technically, Dark Hero would just suck out his soul. Your thoughts, Sarracenian?
Well, I should probably first start that I am pretty surprised that Modern Rider can even have the capability of doing night shoots. That was surprising, but I am not really certain how this. I'm not really certain that this scene is exactly something I really like because, well, okay. So you bring back Asakura, right? And what do we make him to do? All right, let's prey on nurses, and this is kind of this also ties to the scenes that come afterwards. And please, I apologize if I'm getting too ahead of myself here, but you know what this whole thing reminds me of? There's this one Alan Moore interview he once did where he was talking about the movie From Hell based on his comic From Hell and how much he hated that movie because all that movie was basically a banal, pretty much kind of pornographic slasher movie that fed on the sensationalism of the act, but doesn't have any sort of deeper meaning to it or purpose, which he really deliberately avoided when he was writing the comic, which was about Jack the Ripper, which is very impressive and very laudable. And I'm just looking at this, and all I see is exactly the thing that he's describing. It's exactly this. I mean, yeah, sure. It maybe if you look, if you kind of look at it, it kind of resembles something from the Showa era, but I'm not sure I exactly like it to see it brought back in this kind of caliber, especially considering that that the primary victims here are these two nurses, like as we established, these very let's just admit as what it is, pretty sexualized two nurses, and then the scene after, and then like we have the scene after this one, and with like the next victim, like the next nurse, and which is happening in the fucking shower, and it's like, oh right, yeah, fucking yeah, that's just kind of. To me, I don't know. I just look at it and this is like such a low to me to be doing. And especially like considering like, ooh, the next, like when she runs out of the shower in a towel and we go like, ooh, haha, it's sexy, wow. Because apparently someone who is making this, apparently because, that's just what we do now at Kamen Rider, Even when we bring back this, as you guys kind of described, the Showa-esque thing, we kind of still have to bring this sort of bullshit into it. And it's just it's just very disgusting to me, to be honest. I'm just looking at it and I just cannot feel but disgust that we bring these characters back. And as you guys said, these characters have like not appeared outside of like maybe like 3 times or however much is on one hand, however number is on the one hand. And so they bring them back here, and pretty much just as like the sexy female victims for like the fucking serial killer, because that's something we apparently want to watch, or that's something apparently the fucking adult fans who downloaded this fucking app and pay them for it, apparently that's what they want. And that's just very insulting to me. In all fronts, it's very insulting that this is kind of what they're choose to do with this all.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I do agree, yes. It's one of those things where it's like, you're more offended because they're a female character but that's sort of the point.
No, but that's not even really because it's like the female character. It's just like there's all this other like things with
I know.
it.
I was getting to that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm just. Yeah.
Okay, it's because they're doing the horror tropes, and the horror tropes usually are shot with monster and female victim. Secondly, yeah, it's bullshit that they're so overly sexualized, but the thing is, like, it's Toei, right?
That's like I said, that's still not a jail-free card. And
No,
you know,
it's not. I'm just saying, like, Amazon's, it's the same clusterfuck where it's like, oh, we want a mature writer? What's a mature writer? Oh,
No.
Whatever.
Let's not compare this to with Amazon's, okay? Because Amazon's, let's establish that it has way fucking better writing than this one, and at least the victims actually vary. And at least the victims fucking vary, and it's not like this sexualized bullshit that is we are doing here. And even like compared to like the earlier Heisei shows, like even compared to like Guga, you know, which is way fucking more grisly than this show is way more, and that's what, you know, has never done quite the same level of just the most like obvious, this level of just obvious, pretty much just like this sort of almost snuff like pornography thing going on. Like I'm watching this, I'm just thinking, yes, someone making this is fucking just jacking in the background.
It really just feels to me like they just had no idea how to really make a good horror movie by putting anything intellectual into it, and what they did, and so their response to it seemed to be to just make everything, push the sexual parts and the violence just way over the top instead. I mean, they're borrowing some sequences from entire specific horror movies, but they don't have any of the intellectual parts.
No, not at all. And it's just, and I gotta say too, like the way they shot when it's like, oh, they add a little bit of like a green filter and like some high chords into it. Like, yeah, that's cute. You know, that's like the barest minimum you can do. You know, you couldn't even bother to go like actually all gorilla, you know, like fucking Kuga had no fucking budget, and that managed to do like this sort of action, like slasher horror thing way fucking better than this ever can even dream of. So it's not even like good horror to begin with.
Yeah, it's still not even really in the top 10 worst offenses Kamen Rider has done.
No, but it's still pretty upsetting to see it kind of just appear here and being like, yep, this is apparently what we think the fans want. We just don't fucking learn.
That's what I was getting at, is like,
they don't learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, they're not trying. What they're doing is what most companies do when they do like, oh look, it's the more mature and bloody thing, and it's like, it's the most over-sexualized, unnecessarily violent, stupid shit like this. And Toei did it because they don't care. They just phoned it in as hard as they could. And they thought like, oh look, it's not for the kiddies, therefore this is what you want. And it's just garbage. As for why it had to be these nurses and not other people, it's like they have no budget. All right, that's why there's barely any actors or anybody else. Like if they actually wanted more victims, that would actually require a storyline. There is no storyline.
The reason why it was these nurses is because of their connection to the Kamen Riders.
Right, exactly.
But you can do that by coming up with any fucking character.
No. Because later on, it goes into like Hiro says like, this is the most I've ever interfered in the personal lives of my patient. And so it had to be someone close to him. And there's basically nobody close to Hiro, except they are people, but they can pretty much take care of themselves. So we wouldn't have this story. So
for the purposes of getting the story to be putting Hiro in the position of a hero, it had to be them.
And isn't that just peachy? Like that isn't
yeah, I
that
know,
just
it's bullshit.
Like where they're just gonna, we gotta get the hero feel more like a hero, so fucking okay, let's murder a bunch of women then.
Well, they didn't die.
Oh, I'll take. That's pretty, you know, but you know.
This is still, because at the end of the day, this is still horror movie by way of, again, a show aimed at 5-year-olds. So no, nobody died. They pushed the envelope as far as they could. But this isn't
even like 4 or 5-year-olds, is it? It's for fans. If I believe you're correct.
It's for whoever has the app.
I cannot see.
It's for whoever can pay them.
One, we don't actually see the pipe physically land. You know, they show the silhouette of Asakura wailing on her. We see the one cut to the other nurse's back, and then she runs away in typical, goofy style, like the homage to Psycho there, Alfred Hitchcock. but
It's not a
otherwise,
good homage.
it's tame.
I'm just adding my point, which is that whatever they're trying to do here, it's just isn't good, is it? Like I get what they're trying to do, but it's not just not good. I feel this kind of is supposed to be like a major like skeleton of this whole special, and the skeleton is rotten to the core. Like I'm just saying.
It's
Okay. After that, it cuts to Poppy telling Emu that Night of the Safari, a new level for Gashet created by the development team of Genom Corp, has been stolen. And then Hiro gets ready to leave, and Emu asks about Sasuke. And Hiro says that she was attacked by someone. She has compound fractures on both arms, and it's probably going to be fine. Poppy tells her to operate, but Mizuki says that if he misses the award ceremony tomorrow, his chance to be acknowledged by the world would be thrown to the wind. And then it cuts to Poppy and Mizuki in Sasuke's hospital room talking. Poppy says Hiro's too mean and his attitude towards the two nurses is just terrible. But Mizuki says that Hiro is the world's best surgeon and therefore they want to become the world's best nurses, ones worthy of him. Poppy asks why go so far for him, and Mizuki starts to explain, but it cuts to Hiro taking a cab to the airport. Any thoughts on this scene, or couple scenes, Mxyl?
Not really. I mean, it does near the end kind of bring up the whole, is Hiro actually going to not really care at all? And it feels like they're setting up for some sort of dramatic turn of event or something that doesn't really seem to evidently happen. He's just they wanted to make him act like a jerk, and they succeeded on that front, but felt like they were just leading up to something that never came to pass.
Okay. Your thoughts, Rai?
He's the best at what he does and inspires me to be the best at what I do cliche.
Yeah, it's we gotta do this for the great man shit, and it's fucking annoying.
They shouldn't have saved the flashback that this obviously leads into for the end of the special. I think it would have been better to explain the nurse's role if they gave context to why they stick with him despite Kagami's jerk assery, had they done this here and explained his later actions instead of justified in hindsight. So, hide that scene from a storytelling perspective doesn't really work for me.
Okay, Sarracenian?
Well, I mean, given how this apparently the producer here is Takahito Omori, who already did like 2 fucking shows that's basically this same shit all over. This isn't really a surprise in any way. And I do find it kind of hilarious when they say, "Ooh, the best 2 nurses to serve this best doctor or best surgeon," because all I can think of is all those message boards of nurses just kind of shitting on the doctors they're working with because they're actually the ones who are, doing like the sensible things and fixing shit, whereas the doctors are just bumbling. And it's kind of funny that, Exit doesn't know how medic.
I agree in real life that would be the cause, but here we've shown that Hiro is basically the best, but it's still kind of crap.
Is it? It is. It is.
Alright, next scene. Mizuki takes a shower and she gets attacked by Kamen Rider Taiga, through the mirror world. She gets slashed in the back. And then it cuts to Emil walking down the hall, wondering why, Sasuke was attacked, and if it was a Buckster or not. Then he bumps into someone, falls down, gets back up. Mizuki comes running to him, and she asks Emu to help. And Tiger chases both of them. They go out into the parking lot or whatever. Emu tries to henshin to fight Taiga, but he can't. And then he notices that he has Night of the Safari. He realizes that the person he bumped into put the Gashat in his coat. But as he's thinking, he gets surrounded by Tiger Beast, Dark Kiva, and Sword. They all get ready to attack Emu, and Emu notes that they're all animals, and Night of the Safari is a game where you either hunt or are hunted, but as he says that, he gets attacked from behind with a pipe by Asakura. Any thoughts on this, Mxyl?
Yeah, first of all, why was Satsuki even attacked? I mean, there's no real reason for her to even be there. That or for them to even attack her at all. They had the gush on.
Asakura was looking for the gashat, and he thought like she
Okay.
had it.
Okay, that makes a bit more sense. But really, I am going to say, oddly enough, that my dad showed me and my brother Psycho for the first time like 2 days before watching this, so it was pretty evident what it was trying to imitate. But realistically, the comparison just falls apart because Hitchcock's movie actually takes an entire huge segment of the victim to actually set it up and have us really care about the victim. But and he really relies on suspense a whole lot. With this, there's hardly any suspense. It's just a long gratuitous shower scene and with some violence slapped on for good measure. It's more the same thing where they just don't know how to do effective horror, or at least the writer of this special didn't.
It's exploitation. It's basically that's what it is.
Yeah, it's also like a really old, famous movie. And at this point, I don't think they actually watched it. They're probably like, all right, what's collective knowledge? This is what happens. And they just slapped it on. And yeah, Sarracenian, you're right. It's just exploitation.
I think I'd be a bit easier to forgive if she didn't spend like the next third of the entire special just running around with a towel. It's like, I believe I said on the forums that it feels a little naive to accuse something in Japan of fan service, but really I just can't really see this.
That's fair enough. But the other thing is like, she's constantly being chased. Like, when would you have time to change?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, but then they also had that whole like Emu looks at it, it's like, ooh, sparkly, sexy, ooh. Then it's like, yeah, no, they know exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, it's just they tried to add a bit of comedy there.
It's not funny.
It was a bit inappropriate, yes.
But technically, from like Emu's point of view, he has no idea what the hell's going on.
And I mean, as someone else mentioned earlier, this is the kind of show that like 5-year-olds are watching. I mean, first the violence.
Well,
then
I'm not
this.
sure this is what they're watching.
Yeah,
but
probably
it's
not.
possible.
Kamen is not directly aimed at 5-year-olds. 5-year-olds watch it, but it's more like the middle school age demographics.
Yeah.
No, it's 5-year-olds. Take a look at every magazine that advertises for them. Television, Television Magazine. It's aimed at kids. It's a bit naive to think that just because we as adults like it, that it's aimed at any older. No, it's aimed at kids.
Middle schoolers are still kids.
Yeah, I was gonna say more that because this is a special funded by the app, basically, it's more like they're aiming with people with money, and as that, like, it has to be a slightly older audience, and it's just a lot of bad contrivances and miscommunication, which led to like it has to be more mature, and like the worst kind of mature, which is like insanely violent and overly sexualized.
Couldn't they at least make it like fun or something? Like, couldn't they just at least make it like a hyper battle DVD thing, where it's like because they clearly can't do this shit, but at least make it funny, at least make it fun to watch.
Here's the thing, like, originally I thought it was just for the fans, but like, Shinta, you sent me that Twitter link where it's like, in the stage shows, Asakura shows up and beats the shit out of, not Asakura, Oja shows up and beats the shit out of X8. So, like, Toei was totally on board for this, like, hyper-violent thing. And they just added the sexualization shit because they could put it on the app and not worry about, like, too much censorship or something. I don't know. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of bad decisions going into making this thing. As for the fun part, like, that would require budget, and this has none.
You can do low budget fun. The Legend of Elaine were hilarious.
Legend of Elaine was cut scenes from the series.
Yeah, but at least that was at least funny. That one didn't have much of a budget going for it either. It just has these maybe like 2 guys at once, and that was fun.
Okay, but who would we do that with in this show? Sorry, Mxyl, what?
Oh, I was just saying that this you can be really clever. I mean, there are very dark, very serious shows like Nexus, most of the early Heisei Kamen Rider, Amazons, like a lot of that stuff that's really dark and dramatic, but they get across it by messing around with the heroes' minds and having all sorts of drama. And while I get that in a one-time special like this, you wouldn't be able to set up as much drama as you would with a full-length show. It's dark and serious, but there's no real content to it.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Okay, Xaid, he's the main hero of his own show. Laser, he has his own mini special. Taiga has his own mini special. The only character they got left is Hero. Like, Poppy sorta has her own thing. Genom has his own special. Like, literally, they had to make a special using Hero. And how much plot. Like, he's not the fun type of guy. So, like, it couldn't be that much, like, entertainment.
But that's
because
what makes it more hilarious if you can't.
It would go against his character, though. Like, he's supposed to be the stoic hard ass.
Yeah, but you can do comedy with a stoic hard ass.
You can make it the straight
But
man.
his character's not meant for comedy.
Yeah.
Well, neither was Kaito, you could argue, but that they didn't stop all the Gundam spin-offs. I don't know. I feel like this is getting off track if we're keeping talking about this topic in particular. So.
All right. Who was next? Ryan, did you go?
No, I haven't gone yet.
Okay, go.
So I was gonna say that the reason why they're like perverted shower scenes aside, the reason they were targeting this nurse is because they were told to instigate the writers to fight, because as we find out later, Foundation X wanted Gashat data.
Combat data, yeah.
That's why they even gave Emu the Native Safari Gashat. They wanted him to fight. Let's get his attention with like a nurse.
Yeah, that sounds decent enough. Vashie, your thoughts?
For me, the only thing that I didn't like about this is, while yes, this focuses around Brave, that Emu didn't get to transform at all throughout this, is like, because that would have been nice, just him at least starting to fight back against the 4 that showed up, and then Brave coming and go, no, I got this. Typically what he would have done in that situation in the first place, based on the timeline that this special takes place.
Yeah, but if he henshin, the problem would be like Emu's technically has the strongest forms. Like, he can't lose to anyone at this point in the show. So like, if Asakura shows up and kicks his ass, it's like, what makes Hero any better? Like, he's the most overpowered character.
I don't mean like one-on-one with Asakura, but I mean when he was surrounded by the 4, let him fight, because it's 4-on-1, he should have trouble with that. He had trouble with 2-on-1. And have Brave come in, start whooping ass, because it's Brave, and let that lead to 1-on-1 with Asakura, and have Hero tell Emu to take the nurse to go get medical attention. Like, that, to me, that would have worked better rather than the way they just kind of forgot about her.
Yeah, that would make sense, but I don't think they had time for suit acting, because like, even later on, there's 5 writers going against Brave, and basically it's like 2 at a time, and they like take one swing and go down, and then the other 3 remain, and they fight for a bit, and they get taken out. So it's mostly like, I didn't think they had time for this fight. Also, like, how else would Emu end up eating glass, basically? Any thoughts on this, Shinta?
Well, I'm not entirely certain why, but I got a kind of a sick. I kind of enjoyed seeing Emu get his ass handed to him by Asakura. I'm usually not into that form of like blatant sadism. It's just like, it was some way with how they shot it that kind of, not so much got me into it, but it's like beating the naivete out of him.
Yeah, I can see that. Your thoughts, Josh?
Well, as far as this whole sequence goes, like we've been kind of stumbling upon here, there isn't a plot to this. It's very point A to point B. The special starts, the special ends. We just need to get Emu out of the way because he's not the focus here. We're focusing on Hero. So yeah, we have to still put the focus on Asakura being the villain here. And as far as quote-unquote hyper-violence goes, there's nothing hyper-violent about this. Any blood that we see isn't any worse than what we've seen in the shows proper, because it's just the bloody makeup that they put on normally anyway. And then as far as Emu getting the glass in, I thought that was a nice touch as far as getting him hurt goes, but you can clearly see he's not coming into physical contact with anything, so they're having to rely on the audio department to make the sound of glass crinkling around and then showing the visual of his head getting pulled out for you to make that jump in logic of, oh, there was glass in there and he's hurt now. But it's a very roundabout way of saying, oh, see, somebody's hurt, but we don't want to commit to actually showing our actor getting cut, because then that would mean we would have to do effects makeup and we would have to shoot more. And yeah, like we're saying, they did this on a budget. They did this quick and fast to get a quick turnover. So they're not going to do as much work as they could have. And I absolutely agree with you on that point there, that they could have shot it a little different, to have Emu get into a fight with the four of them and then retreat back to do the doctor thing. That actually would have made more sense. But yeah, that would have meant they would have had to have put in more effort and had to have done a few more shots. And as we're seeing here, that clearly wasn't the focus. The focus was to get this story out as quick as possible, to get it on the internet as fast as possible, so they could have that turnover.
Fair enough. Your thoughts, Sarracenian?
I don't see a point in any of the things that's happening in this scene, because I'm looking at it like, okay, yeah, we see Asakura doing his thing, just beating the shit out of Emu, because apparently that's what fans like seeing their main hero getting his ass handed to him. But okay, but it's like, well, what's really the point to it all? It's not as if like Emu's gonna, Emu go. It's not even like this sort of standard wrestling thing where it's like, you see Emu going to his low, having to go through a really low point, but then rises up to the challenge to fight this horrible snake motherfucker who eats dirt from hell and shit. But no, there's nothing like that. We're just watching just this guy just fucking up our main hero for no really particular reason other than his thing, and that's apparently people enjoy watching that. And I don't know, do people enjoy that? Because I feel like I would enjoy it if there's like a point to it, if there's like an arc that's being made, or any sort of like I don't know, does anything that he rants about, like, you don't know the true fighting or true killing. The dirt in hell is magnificent. Does that come into anything for Emu or any of the characters? Is there a point to what he's doing? Do we learn anything about Emu? Do we learn anything about Oja? Although on the other hand, if we do learn something like important character details about fucking either, then it's like, wow, yes, good thing that you put that behind a paywall. But I don't know. There's just really no point to it. It's just like gratuitous cruelty for no particular reason than gratuitous cruelty. At least, Showa Riders, like if we bring those that we mentioned, or then, we mentioned how there's kind of like Showa Rider bits. But you know what? Even Showa Riders do like these sort of acts of cruelty from the monsters. There usually is kind of a point. It establishes, what the monster can do, how dangerous the monster is. You're supposed to be scared of it, and you're supposed to be like, oh man, I can't wait for the hero to beat this thing up. And here it's like, well, yeah, Emu isn't the one who's beating, Asakura up. If it's like Hero, at least it's like there's an arc to it. If it's like, if he's getting the short end of the stick, but no, it isn't. It's just there because apparently people like watching this. But that's not a good reason, is it? Really?
I agree.
Okay, I have a job for you. Okay, go back to Ryuki, rewatch it, and tell me, what were Asakura's motivations at all? What was the point for him to do anything at all? And then come back to this and tell me it's out of character or anything like that.
First of all, I did watch Ryuki. I did rewatch some episodes of Ryuki, the ones that Asakura was in, before I watched this special. And yes, it isn't out of character. You can argue it's not out of character, but that doesn't mean, but that's like that's just a Watsonian reasoning. There is like, yeah, sure, it's in character, but that doesn't mean that the story has any sense to it. Like, it's not really telling anything with these characters at all. They're just acting out these scenes, but there's no point to it. You get what I mean?
Feels to me like the closest thing to a point there is, wow, Asakura must be really, really evil.
Yeah, that's all the point there needs to be.
Yeah, but we already got that. We already got that from all those serial killing scenes. So it's like there's really no point to further drive the point.
They don't have anything intellectual. I mean, in Nexus, which whenever there's blood, according to what I remember, there's always a very distinct reason behind it. There's always something intellectual about it, be it some sort of sudden reveal or something else.
It doesn't even need to have an. Well, it's not even like it's not even like it needs to be intellectual. It just needs there needs to be a reason for why this is happening, and there needs just to be an arc that this is setting up, and it's setting up nothing.
The reason this is happening is because Asakura is psychotic and all he cares about is fighting.
Yeah, that's
and
the in-story reason. That's the
approaches Emu
reason.
To fight him, he gets the jump on him, and then he starts beating the shit out of him. He's not one for talking, he's not one for gloating. He just takes things head on and he takes action.
He just wants his own self-satisfaction from whatever he wants at the time.
From having shot something like this very similarly the same. I get where you were coming from as far as your prep for getting ready to watch this special. You went back and you watched those episodes of Ryuki that had Asakura in them. That's great. But for the purposes of this special, they're not assuming that everybody's going to go back and watch Ryuki. So the easier thing that they can do is have two scenes here, one with one nurse, one with the other, and then pile on that Emu for a third one to show what Asakura's character is without you having to go back and watch that. It's the easiest way of setting up that character without you having to do more homework, because if you're having to do that and put more onus on your audience, then that's taking your attention away from the thing you've already got them watching. It's much easier to have them get a sense of who he is right now really quickly to get the story moving forward.
But then the problem is the people do kind of need to know who Asakura is. Otherwise, none of the fan service here has any point to it.
So the two things I can explain for this is, one, Asakura's been attacked one nurse. Second one was Taiga. Third thing, I mean, he attacks her later, but okay. Third thing is Emu. Okay, the reason why he takes out Emu is because, well, if he didn't, everybody'd be like, it's X8's show. The hospital's right there. Why don't you go call him? So, one, Emu doesn't need to be in the special, but Emu needs to be in the special to explain why the fuck he can't fight the bad guy. And two is because they're just trying to reintroduce Asakura for people who haven't seen Ryuki, because Ryuki was a long-ass time ago, right? Den-O is 10 years old this year. Ryuki must be much older than that show, so yeah.
It's I think 15 years by now.
Yeah, 2002.
Right. The actors in this show grew up watching Ryuki, alright? And they're pretty big fans of it. So they basically wanted to remake Ryuki. I mean, not this special, but X8.
Yeah.
So the thing is, that's how long ago Ryuki was.
In fact,
right?
Toshiki Seto said in an interview, Kagami's actor, said that his favorite Kamen Rider is Oja, so that's part of it. This was kind of more of a dream team up, or fight between them.
But I'm still just saying that, yes, if this is meant to be a character introduction, well, first off, I think we already got a pretty good idea just from the one fish eating scene. And the second, even if this is meant to introduce character, then what else? This is just reiterating the same thing. Well, what is it for then?
It's to take out Emu.
It's to take out Emu.
It's the fact Emu exists and we have to take him out.
Why did we even need Emu in the first place?
Because the hospital's 20 feet away.
You could have done this where it's not set nearby the hospital. You could have. There's many. I'm just saying. There's so many ways they could have done this, and even arguably easier. You don't even need to have Emu here at all. You can easily write this setting the docks somewhere.
Yes, but that would imply they had time to film this, and Toei actually gave a shit, which they don't.
Well, if they don't give a shit, why did they apparently gave enough of shit to include Emu in it? Just saying.
It's problematic, I agree. Asuka tells the others to let him have some fun, so the others leave. Asuka picks up the gashat. Alright, this is the whole glass thing. I'm just gonna skip it because we discussed it to no end. Right, what is it? Asuka, after he makes Emu's face bleed.
Did you say we discussed it? Because there's plenty discussed around here with a special.
Nice joke.
Nice.
Alright. Asuka says battle doesn't mean anything without lives at stake. He then stamps Emu's face into the ground. He said he hits Emu with the pipe. Emu ends up holding on to the pipe afterwards. Whatever. I guess that's showing that, at least he has some resistance. Mitsuki makes a run for it. Asuka chases after her. She thinks she escapes, but Asuka shows up, grabs a piece of broken glass, cuts his hand with it, which is insane. She asks why he's doing that, and he says, would a reason make you feel better? So, I guess nailing his character. She takes the piece of glass, cuts the front of her towel. She falls over. Maybe she faints. Who knows? Coat lands on top of her. Where did that thing even come from? And Asakura stops to look around, and then a ticket knocks the piece of glass out of his hand. It shatters, and then we see the ticket says, Hiro's name on it. Asakura asks who's there. Hiro shows up from behind her, picks up Mizuki, puts her in a corner. Asakura asks who he is, but Hiro only says that this is the first time he's ever interfered this much into a patient's private life. He then calls Asakura a pathogen because he hurts people without thought or intention, and he says he'll cut him out. And then the fight begins, but anything up to this point, Mxyl?
Well, not too much. I mean, some of the same complaints as earlier with just overdoing the over-sexualization because they can. I do like Hiro's statement that it's no better that Asakura when he's comparing Asakura to a pathogen. I think that does work, and is probably the best one of the best statements anyone makes in the special. I think that's all I got.
Okay. Your thoughts, Rai?
Yeah, Asakura cutting the towel was some director's perverted fantasy. If anything, he should have just slit her throat right then and there.
He's a crazy person who's been revived. But yeah, originally I thought he hit her from behind and paralyzed her spine or something, but that doesn't happen. Your thoughts, Vashie?
The only issue I had with it is I don't understand why she fell back all hurt and all that, because all it did was cut one part of the towel. It really didn't touch her beyond that.
Yeah, that's what I said. Maybe she fainted. Your thoughts, Shinta?
Kagami showing up makes no goddamn sense. He's supposed to be off at the airport, and there's never any indication they contacted him at all to get him involved. He just shows up out of the blue and does that throwing paper like a darts thing that he did. I think he's done a few times. I think I might be confusing that with a different character. But this whole distraction for him to then show up, it's 11th hour reveal, but he's supposed to be on an airplane at this point. Why is he suddenly here?
I think maybe he was going to the airport and he decided to do investigation stuff, and then he just showed up at the right time.
That doesn't follow from what's been presented so far. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much for fan service, but at least with the Foundation X guy dropping the Ga shots in Emu's pocket for him to find it, they're at least trying to do some level of narrative cohesion that this is then the point where they abandoned that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually forgot that he just shows up for no reason.
Well, the thing is, when he gets in the cab, you see him looking. So it looks like he's thinking about, maybe not going to the airport, but it's a really short scene, so who knows. Okay, so Mxyl, you want to go?
Oh, well, it just felt to me the arrival just seems like there should have been something beforehand implying some sort of redemption, but he doesn't really seem to have gone through any huge redemption thing. It's just, well, he showed up because he was the good guy. Maybe one could say they had a change of heart and I thought he just had some sort of thing where he realized, I probably should just save the nurse, and then just happened to find Asakura. Though I think there should be something that would actually happen, even if it is just him thinking about it a little more. It actually shows that he's not just there because he should be there.
Josh, your thoughts on this?
I'm going to have to agree with everybody else. It's kind of just a lack of writing or bad writing that he just shows up out of nowhere, because one passing glance out the window on the way to the airport does not show me any more concern for either nurse than what he's shown the entirety of the show proper. And then the whole thing, of him throwing his plane ticket like he's Tsukasa at the end of Decade. Just in my mind, as far as, I've agreed that I'm watching the show and I will suspend disbelief so far, but I know that paper won't. Almost believe that the more cardstock stuff that the Decade cards are made out of could drop something before, but it would have made more sense if we're going to be edgy. That what if he had used a scalpel? That would have been more keeping with his character. That would have meant he was more of a threat. There were just a bunch of things they could have done better there, but that was just really, it just goes to show how lazy they were being.
I think they just did it for the name reveal on the ticket because it says his name on it. Your thoughts, Sarracenian?
I just want to add to what everyone else said. Like, there really was no establishing shot or scene that's like, "Ooh, maybe I should go back to the hospital for whatever reason." I guess that cuts into like that precious time of seeing Emu getting beat up and have his face shoved up in the glass.
Fair enough. There's not that much. It's mostly fighting, so I'll just go through it. The other writers show up, share things for a bit, then he henshins into Brave level 2. He fights Star Kiva and Taiga and takes them out pretty easily. Then he fights Beast and Sword, and Asakura doesn't come in because he can't henshin yet. He stands there just yelling, asking for his wish to be granted, and then his Advent deck is given to him. Asakura henshins into Oja, they start fighting, he knocks Beast and Sword out of the way, saying, Brave is his prey, don't interfere. He smacks Brave around for a bit, Brave gets knocked out of his henshin, Oja then just, sits down, tells him, fight. He tells Hiro to fight because he isn't satisfied yet. Shiro asks him, so you kill others to fulfill your own dream? Oscar says, what's wrong with that? Hiro says he's the opposite of him because he saves the lives of others so they can fulfill their dreams. He henshins again, this time using, Title Fantasy and Night of the Safari. We cut to a flashback of him patching up Emu and taking the gas shot. They fight again, and Brave has the upper hand, so Oja uses Sword and Beast as shields, blocking Brave's attacks. Brave knocks Oja around. Oja starts getting electrified. Brave finishes off Oja with a rider kick. Okay, anything about this fight, Mxyl?
Well, not too much. Nice to see a little kind of... I do have to say that the Oja's transformation... not sure how much of it's low budget or how much of it's just that they're imitating old effects, but I actually was kind of nice to see him transform because it didn't have a huge talking or rapping belt. It's like how a henshin should be, but that's about it.
Yeah, the henshin was basically how they do it in Ryuki. It's very simple. Your thoughts on this, Rai?
I was just so ecstatic to see Oja henshin again after so long. For him to just run up to the nearest mirror and everything is as it should be. It was just a great sight to see. My biggest complaint about this is that he didn't summon Vino Snaker at all. And yeah, this was clearly low budget. They wouldn't have been able to afford it, but I wish they had committed a bit more to show us what made him such a good rider in the past, what made him such a good villain. And then here we just get him throwing the other riders in the way to take Hiro's attacks, which he did that once in Ryuki against an unavoidable attack, but here he's just doing it for what seems to be no reason other than to help clear off the field.
Yeah, he does it a couple times in Ryuki, but I know. I mean, the sword one was okay, but the beast one is like blast, and then like magically beast teleports in front of him. It's like, where the fuck was that? How did he manage to do that? Your thoughts on this fight, Vashie?
Pretty much what Rai said. It was nice to see Oja back in, all the glory of that he was, to the closest extent that this special did. I was disappointed that, he didn't pull out, like Rai said, the snake. I can't remember the name of it because I didn't pay that much attention. But I was also a little disappointed that he didn't do that really, really horrible CG'd rider kick.
Your thoughts on this, Shinta?
Not much to critique with the fight that hasn't already been said. The death, though, bugged me, as it seemed like they were going for the effect of the rider deaths they used in the mirror world, but that really doesn't apply since this is all seen in the real world. It kind of works with the in the potential context of, since this is then revealed to all be a Foundation X, that they plot that they might have revived him as possibly a weak form Necro over, so a finishing attack would have like killed him in that kind of dissolving effect. But to mimic the original Ryuki way of riders dying in the middle mirror world when this is the real world, I don't think really worked. There's ways to rationalize it, it's not very clear on how they executed it.
If you want to really stretch it, you could have said it in Mirror World Asakura, but I doubt it. Your thoughts on this, Josh?
Pretty much got to agree with Shinta on this. Anything that has been said has mostly been said. Same with Rai. This was the money shot, was seeing Asakura transform into Oja. The fight was very underwhelming, and then it didn't make as much sense to see the death. I mean, it's nice to see that they remember how the effect works, but beyond that, I wish this particular fight was longer. And then as far as the Night of Safari rider kick goes, if we had seen it from maybe two other angles and not just the flat straight on, I mean, I get it. This goes back to everything we've been saying. They did this on a budget. They did this as fast as possible. But really, all things considered, what people came for was to see him transform again, and then they gave us that. And then they got it over with as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Sarracenian?
I just think it's funny, just that contrast between Oja's Henshin and then we see Brave, and one is this ridiculous raps and jingles and songs. Not just like the contrast between Rider then and Rider now, and just like this, we're still doing that rap and jingle and shit, even in this dark, fucking edgy serial killer episode, shoving people's up on glasses and cutting people's towels off. That we're okay. Even in Amazons, that's actually something that reminds me. In Amazons, they kind of did try to do that. If you remember, there were parts in the first season where they were like, where you can hear like the jingle, the belt have like that same song jingle for a while. It's not as obvious. And by the end, and there was at least one scene where it's like kind of starts overlapping with the rest of the music, and they did not do that anymore after that. So yeah, the jingle is just out after that, and that's just which I find is kind of hilarious. And just kind of looking at this, and it's like, okay, that sure is a thing Ryder is doing now. Also, Brave's fursuit it looks bad. It looks bad.
Yeah, that suit is kind of terrible. Like, the only good things are, like, its eyes glow and it has a rider kick. Like, that's it. Otherwise, it's just the level 5 suit, Dragonite Hunter, with a really shitty skin on it. I mean, like, we didn't talk about this, but the rest of you guys, you can just join in. I'm not going to call out your names. What were your thoughts on this new power-up level 4 suit?
For what it needed to do, I was okay with it, but the fact that it was literally just a reskin of Dragonite Hunter kind of bugged me a little bit, because I'm sitting there the whole time going, that's Dragonite, that's Dragonite, that's Dragonite. Oh, look, kick time.
We've evolved from a scaly suit to a fursuit, I guess.
Well, we didn't evolve because they didn't get rid of the scales. The scales are still on the back.
Oh, shit.
The spines. Yeah.
We got two.
The head, I believe, was actually a unique, head. I don't think it used the same mold.
Well, yeah, but that's the only thing they did. They added fur, they changed out the head, otherwise it's the exact same suit. Like, what would have been nice is if they had bothered to make the side that Snipe uses, if they had bothered to make that, like, a claw or something to make it more animal-like, then maybe I would have bought it. But it's the fact that you can tell, again, they did as little amount of work as possible with a reskin, and it shows.
It's like they just literally put a skin, the pattern skin, over the existing Dragonite Hunter prop, too, and just swapped out the head.
Yep, I believe it.
I don't know, yeah. Well, we can probably find someone's OC who looks like this in the Fur Affinity sites.
Okay. Asakura, gets beaten, he dehenshins, and he tells Hiro to fight because if he doesn't, he might as well be dead. After that, he fades, laughing, even though, that shouldn't happen. Cuts to the hospital. Mizuki and Sasuke wake up fully healed. They realize that the only one who could have done this would be Hiro, which is insane unless he now has wizard-style healing. And then we get the flashback to several years ago. Mizuki and Sasuke are badly hurt. They're trapped under, I guess it's a collapsed building or something, and then Hiro comes in, he treats them. They say it's no use, they can't be saved, but Hiro tells them not to throw their lives away, and that he'll keep their dream alive, and that's his mission. It cuts back to present day. Hiro walks down a hall, two nurses show up, they thank him. Mizuki says it's the second time that he saved them. Sasuke says that he canceled his trip to America for their sake, and then Hiro goes full tsundere mode and tells them, don't flatter themselves, that there'll be more chances for the world to acknowledge him, and then he walks off. And then it cuts to Emu and Poppy, and then Emu says, why is Hiro so cold even at a time like this? Poppy says those three share a special bond that others can't understand. And then Poppy says she heard that Night of the Safari was found, but Emu says that Hiro said he lost it suddenly. And then there's only one scene after this, but any thoughts on all this?
The best line in this whole special was Hiro telling Asakura that he doesn't have the right to talk about life.
Yeah, that was a pretty good line. Vashie, you go.
Honestly, it was nice to get despite, it was special continuity and all that, and whether or not it actually holds true to the main canon of the story, it was nice to get a little backstory on, I guess, the relationship between Hiro and his nurses, despite the fact that we've only seen them now 3 times.
Okay, fair enough. Shinta, your thoughts?
Nothing to really go on. I think that establishing scene with the nurses would have fit better earlier in the story. Otherwise, not much else.
Your thoughts, Josh?
I have to agree with everybody else. The ending's pretty rushed. I do agree with you there, Shinta. If they had shown that flashback a little sooner, maybe that would have added more weight to the fight. Otherwise, yeah, it's just a rush to the end so we could get that tease for Foundation X still lurking in the background.
Okay, your thoughts, Sarracenian?
Just the scene where Poppy says, "Oh, these three share a special bond that no one really understand." Yeah, no one who never watches this special will ever understand because this thing is apparently behind a paywall. So this is another one of those special. So it's one of those things of Rider trying to do this whole multimedia franchise thing because a lot of Japanese pop media is doing nowadays. But and I know. Then we already mentioned this how X8 and just Rider has for a while since I guess ever since maybe not. Forza wasn't as bad. I guess Gaim, really. Yeah. Where it's just kind of been putting all these, just kind of locking all these different bits of everything into these different, really overall very substandard products that you still kind of have to pay for. And it's just kind of ridiculous to me, where it's trying to hide the fact that it's trying to hide the fact that this is like a fucking Saturday show for fucking tots and doesn't have some fucking complicated multi-layer super plot that extends to generations that would kind of justify all that. Instead, it's just this bit of this bit of characterization at the end. This small bit of carrot at the end of this stick. This ugly, bloody, filthy, termite-ridden stick. And I don't know.
I'm gonna say that yeah, it's kind of annoying that it's limited to the app, and then they're gonna put it on a DVD. Because of course. But the other thing is these guys are such minor characters that realistically this would have been a cutscene anyway. Because there's not that much plot here. As for X8, it's got so much shit going on that basically I don't think there's any real filler. So, yeah, it makes sense why this stuff isn't in X8, but yeah, it's kind of annoying how Toei is splitting up everything into so many different avenues. I mean, it hurts us less because we don't have to pay for this shit. But like if you're in Japan, yeah, it'd be pretty annoying. Right. So finally, it just cuts to King Dark, and we find out that he was just a projection created by Foundation X. As one of the members puts the projector away, we see they have the Night of the Safari Gashat. He says over the phone that they have collected combat data from the Gashat, and they can advance to the next phase of the experiment, all for the grand plan. Okay, Rai, go.
About the Foundation X thing. The reveal, I wasn't really thinking about like who was behind it, so the reveal of Foundation X kind of caught me off guard, especially since we haven't heard from them in too long. But once I saw it was them, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. They're basically trying to be the next Shocker, except they suck.
Okay, Vashi.
Like for me, that's what it was as well. It's like, oh wait, there was somebody else behind this. Oh wait, it's Foundation X. Wait, they're still around. They haven't learned yet. Then again, neither is Shocker, but I'm just glad it wasn't Shocker. I'm sick of them being used as this overreaching, constant use of bad guys when they have Foundation X built and, funded and working at the same time. It was nice to see that they didn't forget that Foundation X existed.
Okay, Shinta, your thoughts?
Yeah, glad to see Foundation X back, as they're mainly researchers and investors. They're not really big bad in the normal sense for the franchise, in that they fund other people that actually do all the villainous crap, versus Shocker, where, well, let's face it, if the Great Leader is involved, it's generally a stupid idea. And this goes back to the original series, where all of his subordinates tended to be smarter than him. This is just another Foundation XL, one more agent from the Great Organization pulling his own isolated plan, which is pretty much what every time they've done with Foundation X agents. Just test a new thing to get them power and just fade out of everybody else's nonsense.
Fair enough. Your thoughts, Josh?
Really, my biggest hope is that with the inclusion, or I should say re-inclusion, of Foundation X here at the very end, is that the writers that are there at Toei do have something in mind, that this is building towards something bigger, that will eventually get a payoff for all these different smaller appearances of the Foundation, and that maybe it won't pay off here in X8, but hopefully down the road, maybe in another year or two, when we get to a 50th anniversary for Kamen Rider, that we'll actually get to see what all that research was leading up towards. Otherwise, it's going to be very disappointing and feel just like Narutaki all over again. It's just something they teased, but they never went anywhere with it. So I'm hoping that this means something in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, they might just be the villains for the new crossover movie thing. Mxyl, do your thoughts quick, and then Sarracenian, you can go on your long rant.
Yeah, I have to catch up with it because I'd never ended up actually getting around to seeing the first bits of Foundation X, though I am, so, not well.
Okay, Sarracenian, you can just go ahead.
Okay. To me, just the reveal that, oh my god, it was Foundation X all along. That was just like the best fucking punchline this thing could have had. That's just like, well, how else are we gonna end this pointless, supposedly for fans, but no fan really asked for, fucking paywall behind a paywall for some low effort bullshit special with a fucking fursuit that isn't an actual fursuit, but actually like a repurposed scaly suit. Let's end it on fucking Foundation X, because apparently Foundation X still matters. Fucking they never done anything interesting. Have never been interesting. Every time they show up, since Double, they've always been like losers. They've fucked things up, or are just completely unimpressive as any kind of threat, and then now they're here back again, and it's like, oh, they were behind it all. Oh my God, isn't that great? And it's just like, okay, yeah, wow, that's really cute. Like we're still riding this wave, Like, okay, you guys, I have to kind of disagree on you guys on this one bit though. Like when you are tired of Shocker, at least Shocker, I will say, they bring back Shocker a lot, but at least at least they're like at least they are an established thing. Like at least we know the fact that Shocker can be intimidating and dangerous. At least they have the the iconography, all of it, behind them. At least the monsters are more interesting to look at. That they're more they're certainly more fucking interesting to look at than the bland, guys in white suits who are all like, yes, our plan, our finances. This is all according to our predictions. Yes, we're gonna go get beat up by the principal guy from Forza now. Ooh, and it's like, okay, sure, yeah, okay. I mean, it's like they trying to do that whole, Black Ghost, fucking evil financer thing, except without any of like the actual technique and skill that Black Ghost has behind, because this is not because one's written by Shotaro Ishinomori and one's a thing that Riku Sanju came up for the last stretch of Double. So it's like there's gonna be a level of writing difference. I expect that, but it's just like I'm just still amazed that they are still bothering with this whole thing. I feel like a fucking after like fucking Kamen Rider 1 movie. They already did that whole thing with Nova Shocker. And Nova Shocker are fucking way more interesting than these guys are. In that fun fucking scene, in that one fucking boardroom scene, they're way more interesting than Foundation X has been for like, well, how long has it been? 8 years since Double? Yeah, 8 years. So, okay, yay, they're here, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Like, Black Coast is what Foundation X tries to be, but like Black Coast is way more interesting.
No, Black Ghost is actually like a sort of almost existential horror by the end of it all, whereas like Foundation X is like they're just some white collar losers.
Yeah, more in the beginning when we
I
go
guess,
to eight. I think it's 8. When we go to his country and like Black Coast is funding both sides of the military conflict. Like that was pretty good.
See, Black Ghost is interesting. Black Ghost is cool, and Black Ghost actually like there's also like actual real world commentary with Black Ghost as well. And what does Foundation X really comment on? Not really much. Not much. Other than white collar businessmen are kind of boring.
You know what they're trying to do? They're trying to do the black thing, where at the beginning you have all these like high society people meeting like Golgum.
Yeah.
That's basically what Foundation X is trying to do, but they never quite get there.
I will give them that they will at least like I will give them that. Like if they were like, in Double itself, sure, it was kind of boring, but at least it kind of worked. They kind of worked in Double, even though they were kind of unimpressive as like a solitary thing. But outside of Double, just don't work. Like if they were just like, just so because.
Yeah, they worked best only in that Kamen Rider Eternal movie. But even then, it's just like, yeah, they funded the separate camp, Eternal, and shows up and he fucks their plans up. That's probably the best they've ever worked.
Yeah, pretty much. Even in Megamax, they were just taken over by fucking Ginga. It's like, not even like just a completely different guy entirely, and just makes Foundation X look like fools again. At least when Shocker fucks up, it's because of the heroes, not because of some other third party.
Yeah, fair enough, I guess. So final thoughts. Rai, let's go.
Overall, while this special was lacking, it did show us a bit of Oja again after like 15 years even. Man, it's been a long time. So it was fun to see that. One thing I forgot to mention earlier was that I think that when they had the guy walk past Emu to hide the gash in his pocket, I think that was clever because you see the white jacket, you'd think doctor, But then once I saw the white jacket later on, I immediately went, "Oh, that guy works for Foundation X." Before it like flashes the briefcase.
Yeah, that's interesting. Vashie, your thoughts?
While this special was very lackluster with what it had set out to do, just the fact that Oja was in it made me extremely happy. Especially with the fact that for our group showings, we've been rewatching Ryuki. It was nice to see that again. Beyond that, I could have done without this special itself and the repaint of Dragon Knight Hunter.
Okay, Shinta, your thoughts?
This special was pretty meh to me. I'm kind of burned out on Toei Bad, so this isn't even a blip on my radar. I mean, I'm not overreacting to it like Sarracenian, but I can see where he's coming from with a lot of his points. But honestly, the last thing I got ridiculously irritated over was Lucky. Okay, this was a few weeks ago, but Lucky telling Raptor to kill herself, that was more offensive to me than the sexism here. Like the Kiriko fake out suicide in Grand Prix was more offensive to me than like Asakura going after the nurses in in the whole slasher thing. Maybe it's hitting a different nerve with me than it is with him, but this is easily just something that can be skipped over. It doesn't really add anything. If you're here for Oja, it gives you Oja being Oja, and that's, I think, what all they wanted to do with it at the end.
Yeah. Aside from Oja, this is probably the worst piece of X8 thing there. Oh, yeah, pretty much. The others are boring. This is great. Like it's not terrible, but there's nothing special about it. Like without Oja, this would be straight skip. Like it's nothing that important. But as for X8, yeah, this doesn't add much. This definitely like the lowest. I mean, X8 as a show is much better than this. Your thoughts, Josh?
Well, overall, as a special, yeah, I have to agree. It was fairly boring. There's not a lot of meat on it. Really, yeah, if you're there for Oja, you get Oja. I'm glad that there was Foundation X at the end, and really that's all I can take away from it. Otherwise, with the exception of that flashback between Hiro and the two nurses, there's not much that this would add to the canon proper of Exade. It's not a good reflection on the series as a whole when they've been doing such a great job telling their stories and building their characters. Really, yeah, this was the cheapest amount of fan service they could get off as fast as possible, and that's about all you got to take it as.
Okay, Sarracenian, your final thoughts on this?
Well, the short answer is it's a raw piss. But well, the thing is here, it's like okay, believe it or not, despite my, as Shinta really rightfully calls it, overreactions, because I like doing those kinds of bits in these kinds of podcasts overall. But despite that, overall, I feel like this really is like really at best it is really just mediocre. Like it's barely anything. It's just like 2 cents trash. No one's gonna care about it or think about it, and no one, and rightfully so. It's like this is basically just nothing. It aims for nothing. It tries nothing, and it basically is nothing. Which I could also argue is probably a little worse than if it were just like really offensively bad, because those at least kind of try something, but this one doesn't try anything. So yeah, it's very apathetic. But the moments that I see from it, which we already went over, where I already ranted about, when I see them, I just see like just the symptoms of what kind of these symptoms of the disease that's already kind of rooting in Kamen Rider, just festering there. This is just kind of the microcosm of it. And seeing that just kind of like, it's just something that I think deservedly needs to be kind of pummeled on and kind of spit on, because those are not very nice things to have in your franchise. Kamen Rider's been just really pathetic in these sort of things, especially the recent years. And really, there was like maybe sometimes there was like a glimmer of hope, Akari from Ghost. But after that, we just back to the same old bullshit, back to this. And it's just really, it's just really, just shameful all around, just pitiful to kind of watch, That Kamen Rider Toei just doesn't want to go anywhere like higher than this in a lot of ways. And even while we are at it, I do kind of have to just question, like, even adding Oja here to begin with, because this is not even like a good use of your Oja. Okay, so play along with me here. It's like, yes, like X8 is like is another like Rider War show, right? Like kind of like Ryuki or Gaim.
Well, it's Rider versus Rider.
Not quite like Ryuki or Gaim. There's more character conflict than actual all-out war until this current arc where it's more seeping in.
It's more like Blade or Kabuto, where it's like it's sort of there, but like they have bigger threats to fight. Yeah, it's more Blade.
The focus is more on beating the monsters than beating up other riders.
Okay, so it's a little bit more like Kabuto or Blade. But it's a kind of an interesting thing too. When I think about it, if this is like conflicting riders, you would think that you could do some interesting things with Oja, because Oja is he's from the very first sort of like what we think it for now is like the modern multiple rider show. Ryuki, that's where it all started pretty much, and Oja is also the very actually he's not the first, but he is like the first sort of just out and out irredeemable evil Kamen Rider, like has the actual name Kamen Rider. Before we've had like Shadow Moon and guys like that who look like riders but aren't technically riders. And before Oja there was like Scissors, who was actually like the literal first bad guy rider. But Oja is where it's like he's just irredeemable bastard, whereas Scissors is a corrupt cop, which is also kind of an interesting thing, to kind of think about how the very first evil rider is a cop. But whatever, that'll be a whole other discussion that I get into like in Uncommon Cast podcast. But either way, it's like you think you would do something interesting with that setup. You have the very first evil irredeemable rider with these other guys in this new kind of almost semi-multiple rider conflict show. But I guess, that's way too of a high watermark for them to really get to. So we'll just get the most rudimentary of the most rudimentary, aim for most lowest of the low hanging fruit. And just let's watch Asakura ranting about mud and beating up Emu and spraying on women, because apparently that's what we want to see now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very phoned in. But the other thing with you're saying, like, Asakura showing them, like, what a real rider versus rider thing is, or just the contrast, like, we already have a guy for that. We had, like, an entire arc for, like, Dangerous Zombie is basically that.
Okay.
Like, its existence is to point out, like, this is not what a rider should do.
Yeah, well,
Well,
now Oja's purpose in this whole thing is even more pointless, isn't it?
Well, I mean, whenever like an actor comes back, it's sort of just like random fan service anyway.
Yeah,
so
it's just kind of a shame that we couldn't do anything more interesting than this. Like not even a Tyson movie, just this.
Fair enough. I mean, the problem with that would be then you lock really good content behind a paywall.
Yeah. I mean,
So like.
To be fair, if this was a Tyson movie, they would have gotten his character completely wrong. But
I mean, well,
they would have gotten Asakura from when he was on the that ferry, like saving the girl. They would have put that Asakura in,
because that's how against what the canon depiction of a rider usually is in a Tyson movie. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, canon is a nebulous thing in Kamen Rider to begin with. Let's be honest here.
Agreed, but I'm saying within reference of their own series and how they act within that, not so much all going and adapting exactly their plot points.
Yeah.
I'm more referring to getting the character right, and their motivation should take priority over like just this one scene they want to take the depiction of the character in.
Yeah. Although you would think that Asakura would be the one, at least the one guy who'd be pretty easy to get, but then again, it is the Tyson movies. You know, what's the current one called? The Cho Tyson, Super Tyson, the superhero Tyson.
Oh, and when he showed up as an ally in Let's Go Kamen Rider, that was just fantastic.
What the fuck? Seriously?
Yeah, he was one of the secondary support riders that came in for the all-rider break.
I mean, you know what? That was just, you know what? At least with that, that's just like a tiny weird Easter egg than it is like a full-blown thing.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. That's definitely random. I haven't seen that one.
All spring movies are terrible. It's kind of become a rule.
Let's Go is kind of more interesting to watch than a lot of them. Let's Go at least has some more interesting and decent moments to it, I feel. So Superhero Tyson so far, well, the only good one has pretty much been like Kamen Rider Tyson, and even that isn't really good so much as it just has.
Is Tyson Z, not Kamen Rider Tyson.
Superhero, I don't remember anything from Superhero Tyson Z.
It's the Space Sheriff one.
It was fucking boring as shit. I don't remember.
Okay, the wizard parts were great. Everything else was
I don't
terrible.
remember the wizard parts either.
Okay, Nito is like the best character in that show. I mean, that movie. It's fucking amazing. Because he's such a smartass, and it's like early Nito when he just shows up and he's being like a cocky asshole. So he's just acting like that throughout. Oh, it's great. But other than that, yeah, it's super boring. Was Grand Prix a spring movie?
Grand Prix was the spring movie. It was a spring movie.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. The only good, like the best one I can think of is Rider Tyson, and that's because like we had character moments, but if we're including that, then we might as well use Kamen Rider 4 because that's probably the best at this point.
But Kamen Rider 4 was kind of the beginning of this whole paywall bullshit, so I almost feel like it should be disqualified.
It was net movie stuff, because Superhero Tyson GP couldn't actually tell all of its own story within of its own story. It had to have the prequel with the spring combining special, and had to conclude its plot points in the web's videos. Because that's how bad the writing for those has gotten.
Yeah, I think Drive was the worst for it, and after that, Toei sort of pulled back. I mean, that's mostly for Ghost, and then they doubled down on X8. But to be honest, like the only things in X8, like, okay, there's one scene from this that I needed in this, and that's the scene at the end, or basically with, Hero coming in to treat the nurses. That's the only thing I could add to the show. The only other ones is like the one from Snipe and his backstory. Like, yeah, put that in the show.
But that's the problem, isn't it? They won't be putting that in the show, or else how are they gonna swindle you some more of that yen?
Yeah, if you're putting things necessary for telling your story in supplementary material, you are failing as a storyteller.
Yeah, it's for the DVD specials though. Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
I'm just thinking also from just not even like just from the viewpoint of as like a kid's thing overall, it just seems like this is just a very terrible practice, because not all kids are gonna afford all these like fucking watch this, buy these expensive fucking DVDs that might have something interesting but won't really. Some kids
Toei and Bandai only care if you help them.
Older kids who follow the series and collectors would, and admittedly that's not a good justification, but the small child demographic is a constantly shrinking market in Japan. That's kind of the basis for Amazon's, to appeal to older people that were fans. That's their audience.
Yeah,
like season 2 of Amazon's is straight up a writer show, like a standard like early Heisei writer show now. It's not even Amazon's season 1. Like, it's not as good as those. As someone who didn't like much of what went on with Amazon season 1, that actually sounds more appealing to me.
Oh, interesting.
Like season 2 immediately is more interesting, but it's not great. Like, it's not as good as the early Heisei Rider shows, but it's better than season 1.
I mean, let's be honest. I feel like we are gonna have to wait, or perhaps there's just never gonna be a time when we will ever go back to the quality, to the standard of quality that we had back in like the early Heisei, or even especially like the early Heisei. We're talking about the time period between 2000 and maybe like up till Blade. Like, there's not gonna be another time period for that anymore.
I mean, X8 is close in its show, but even then, it's not.
I've heard a lot of conflicting things about X8, so I'm not entirely convinced.
I think he sorted this out though. Okay.
Its first arc was mainly hurt by the toy shelling and the compression to get the story to a certain point before the winter movie, as has been a problem with every Rider series since Wizard because of the whole scheduling shift thing.
Mxyl, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, my final thoughts on the special. I have to admit, when I first went through it, then I kind of enjoyed it. But really, it's been, in retrospect, it's really quite an awful letdown. It's because I'd always liked the idea of a darker Kamen Rider and returning to a darker tone, and the trailers or whatever made it look like it would be dark, but it's just all the wrong kinds of dark. There's no real heart to it. Near the end, then I liked the message that they were going for near the end, where he may have a heart of gold or what underneath or whatever, but he really just needed some kind of having gotten better, as opposed to saying that he was suggesting that he was good all along, because he's still a jerk.
Okay, fair enough. You want to sign off also?
Sure. This is Mxyl Voltapaz, and I will see you guys later.
Oh, Vashie's gone.
Vashie wishes you all a happy birthday. Alright, thanks everyone for listening, and I will see you next time.
Shinta.
I'm Shinta. I'll see y'all later. You can find me at dailymotion.com/Shinta Reviews.
Josh.
I'm Josh Knight the First. You can find me over at youtube.com/Josh Knight the First, or over on Twitter. I'm at Josh Knight First there.
Sarracenian.
And I'm Cannibal Sarracenian, which you can find at C Sarracenian on Twitter. And I, of course, am part of the Uncommon Cast RX podcast of the TOH Network, which is shortened for Trial of Heroes. You can Google that if you want to. And I promise I won't be as ranty some of the time on there as much as I'm here. But and if you don't enjoy me, that's fine. I understand. But if you do happen to enjoy listening, you can find me or just us in general on the Oncoming Cast RX and things. And we are also a little bit of advertisement. There's gonna be another podcast episode soon that has me on it, and Aleph from Oncoming Cast, and a special guest in which we talk about a thing that we do like, from a recent Rider thing we do like as well, which is surprising to the both of us. Well, to me and Aleph, not to the special guest. You might know him if you're into the fandom a lot, but I'm not. But he'll be a surprise.
And this is Zero signing off. See you guys next time.